so many moving parts in real estate. When you're looking at buying or selling a home, trying to choose a professional that you're going to work with, it's a lot. And it can be difficult to understand how to find the right people, as well as how to be the right person. I'm excited for today's guest. I'm actually very excited because this is one of the most knowledgeable brokers that I've met. Today on Sit Down with Sam, we're joined by Jeff Proctor, a staple in the Chicago real estate scene. He's been around for years, and today you're going to see exactly why. Talking about what's important, not just looking at the pretty sparkle finish on a property, but what's underneath the hood and why should that matter to you. If you want to know more about why that should matter, join us for the episode. All right, excited to jump in today. We're going to just get started. Mr. Jeff Proctor is here. Been in the industry for a long time, been a staple in the Chicago real estate industry, and I'm really excited to hear more about what he has to say, picking up on a conversation we had a few weeks ago. So Jeff, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Why don't you, for those who don't know, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and what's led you to where you're sitting right now?
So I've been in the real estate market for 23 years in Chicago, mostly on the brokerage side. Now we're getting into some development investment stuff. So that's always fun and exciting, kind of a little change up. But the brokerage is really our key business. Started out representing developers, so did about 15 buildings downtown, mid-rise, high-rise, 3-flat, 6-flat stuff, all across the board, single-family homes. So, and then that kind of transitioned into where we're at now, which is about a group of about 7 that I run and operate. And then we, since moving to Elmhurst, now we focus in on the city and then the Western Suburbs.
Okay.
So. Yeah.
So those developments that you're working on, that was like 2002, 2003?
Yeah, so the first one was 2002. Yeah, 2002, 2003, which was Printer Square in 400-unit condo apartment conversion project. Yeah.
That's interesting. We followed a very similar path, 23 years in this business. And after, when I got in first year or two, I started focusing immediately on purchase business because I had no book of business. Yeah. Everyone around me was refinancing people like crazy because rates had dropped to 6%.
Yeah, and
that at the time was, a lot of people don't realize, was one of the biggest moves that we had seen in interest rates for homeowners, bigger than what we just went through actually.
Yeah, and my first rate was 6.75.
6.75. Yeah,
on a townhome in Wicker Park.
In Wicker Park sounds pretty. Similar to where we're at right now, right?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Not too different from where we're at right now. No. I used to go around and I would find the building permits. Yeah. So I'd go up when a construction site would go up, and they'd have the permit, and I would take the developer's phone number off there. Oh yeah. And I would call them up and say, "Listen, I just want to see, what are you doing for your sales plan on this?" Yeah. And it was amazing because no one was really doing this. No. So the conversations were easy, welcomed, and all you had to do is throw a few questions at them, and it was easy for me to come in and start to rep those developments.
Yeah, for sure.
How did you get started on the development side of things?
Well, I was working with At, and truth be told, I was working 2 jobs for 2 years. And At presented me to be on the sales team of Printer Square, and that's kind of when I let go of my other job. And then, Thad and Mike have always had the developer relationships, and then that kind of spiraled into the next project.
What was the other job? Got to ask.
Huh?
Can you tell us what the other job was?
AT&T.
AT&T?
Yeah, I was a technical sales executive selling high bandwidth connections to trading firms.
All right. Yeah. Well, you leveled up. You went from one sales to another form of sales that pays a little better.
Well, truth be told, I started making more money in real estate, and then they wanted to move me from the downtown office at AT&T to the Schaumburg office, and I said no, and they said, "We have to talk," and I said, "No, we don't." I said, "We're good to go," and I just moved on. So
it's interesting talking about the development side. I mentioned earlier a conversation we had a few weeks ago, and it was interesting because we're sitting with a group of agents, and we're talking a little bit about what's going on in the industry, some different things here and there. And it became very apparent to everyone in the room how much you knew about these developments. Like, you were educated. You don't just walk through the door and say, "Look at this pretty kitchen."
Yeah,
right?
Correct.
Like, is that something that, how did you get to a position where you became so well educated on the product, right? And why did you think that was important?
Yeah, so I think the first couple of developments we did was, the sales center, right? You're selling 3 different types of granite and 2 different types of...
That is the kitchen, right? Look at the kitchen.
And truth be told, it's like I I just got bored with that.
Okay.
And I started to really sit in with developers and learning about projects, right? Curtain walls, insulation factors, I-beam construction, structural components, things of that nature. So it made me better educated. Obviously, I've done 4 projects for myself, so obviously kind of led that charge as well.
Okay.
But I think knowing the inner components of the development world, architecturally wise, is huge. Not only for development work, but also for clients looking for, a specific type of product, right? So they don't get caught in a financial nightmare on a cheap product, right?
It's interesting.
So,
Yeah. It makes me think of Texas, right? People see on Instagram all the time, you see these, and my wife will ask me this. She'll look at this amazing house and she'll be like, how is someone buying this for $650,000? She's like, this would cost millions of dollars here. Like, how is that even possible? Is it the same? And she'll say, she's like, is it the same wood? Isn't it the same nails? What's going on? And I've
Cheaper
asked
labor.
someone there, and they say, besides cheap labor, they say you try to find a straight wall in the house.
Yeah.
Materials, defects, things of that nature.
Sure.
But putting that into our context, can you think of maybe a way that you've helped someone in the past where they avoided something that could have been a nightmare when it came to the construction?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there's developments that I wouldn't even touch in the city of Chicago personally.
I can imagine.
And you can see the quality of work. And that goes all the way down to single family home, condos. I mean, it's all across the board, right? We've done some commercial deals too, where you've walked in and you look at it and you go, there's no way I wouldn't touch this. I mean, it's just a difference of understanding, like, all right, you can get a window that has a 2-year warranty and you can get a window that has a 35-year warranty. You can get a roof that has a 5-year warranty. You can get a roof that has a 35-year warranty, right? The better quality has a better warranty, right?
Sure.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be a reputable name, although that helps. So if you're here's the easiest example. We just sold $1.8 million single family home, right?
Okay.
And we had 2 different developers representing 2 different single family homes. I looked at the specs on each and I lined them up and compared them. I go, well, they're the same price, maybe about $50,000 difference. But this developer A has about $130,000 to $150,000 in better quality materials, right? Better roof, spray foam insulation, better window selection. The list goes on. It goes down to mechanicals and everything else. So I go, listen, they're charging $50,000 more, but they have $150,000 in better finishes. You're just going to get a better quality product, right?
Which is going to save you more in the long run too, because the longevity of that.
Correct.
Right. The life of that actual home.
Correct.
That's amazing. Actually, I didn't think about that.
And there's a lot of developers that will sell you a cheap product and try to expect the same amount. You just have to poke holes in that.
Do you find that that's are the cheaper products prettier, so to speak? Like I wonder is there a position where someone tries to, what's that saying? Put lipstick on a pig? Yeah.
Well, it's definitely lipstick for sure. Well, you just got to know what you're looking at. Unfortunately, because we're in today's environment of social media to $1 million listing, and everybody thinks that everything is equal, and that's not necessarily the case, right? We were in Aspen for a Christie's conference, and I hate to say this, but we walked through a $75 million house, and I thought it was kind of cheaply built.
Right, you're like, this is horrible.
I mean, whereas I would say the majority of people just see the $75 million and they're like, this is amazing. No, it wasn't. I mean, it was a great architectural floor plan.
Okay.
But I just saw some of the material misses on there and the quality of work.
Why do you think they would do that? For going to that person, because I've worked with a lot of developers, and some of them are, they take a lot of pride in what they do, and they do different things. In an example like that, why would they cut corners?
Well, maybe a little bit inexperienced. Maybe it's just something they've gotten away with. Maybe you got, a potential buyer on the other end that really doesn't have a clue. And a lot of times it's when it's finished, it looks good. It's the 3 to 5 years down the line that you really notice that you got a cheap product. So you really have to point this stuff out. It makes a world of difference in terms of the quality of the product when they go to resell, right? I tell clients all the time, it's like, when I get into this, I say, listen, I don't want you calling me 3 to 5 years down the line and you lost X amount of dollars. That's my position. 50% of my business is to make sure you're getting the right financial decision to be made, and it goes into the quality of construction of a product. And there's a lot of times where I walk through a property, a development or whatever, and I'll tell a client, no, let's run,
Right.
because it's not good. I wonder how many agents actually tell their clients no, because for the sake of chasing a commission. But I tell my clients no quite a bit, and they'll ask and they'll inquire and they'll be like, why? And I'll go through the laundry list of everything that I see wrong with this, and it kind of is scary. I mean, it really is. I mean, you've heard nightmares.
I have clients who will call me and they're looking to buy another home, and I'm like, you just bought that home a year ago. I'm like, you're going to lose money on selling this home. I'm like, are you trying? Because at first I'm like, wait, are you trying to make a quick buck? What's going on here?
Yeah.
And then something comes up. Like,
not all developers are, you get some newer people in the industry, and or some people that have been around for a long time that have delivered that product and been very successful with it.
Works for them.
Just people don't know the difference.
If you were to give some advice to, say, an agent's listening right now and they wanted to work with developers, right? Because I think there's always those levels of the dream, the hierarchy, right?
Sure.
Starts off with agents who are dealing with rentals, which is interesting because agents will have this like shameful, like, oh, I just do with rentals, but I want to do with sales.
Sure.
Never quite understood that. I'm like, well, you're developing a relationship from the beginning. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But let's say someone in that hierarchy working with developers tends to be further up the plateau.
Sure.
What would be some advice or a recommendation you would give to someone who says, you know what, I'd like to work with more new construction sales?
Sure.
What would you recommend?
Understand the product. I
Okay.
mean, understand zoning first and foremost. Having a casual conversation. That's how a lot of these things start, right? So like I met a developer yesterday just randomly, and then we started getting into the development work he's done and where he's done it at. And you got to know that zoning when you go in.
Okay.
That's kind of like your basis, right? So whether you're R3, R3.5, R4, R4.5, R5, DX7, DX 13 or 12, DX12. You can get into all these things, but you got to know like the variances, where you can build lot line to lot line, the FAR, so floor to area ratio, which is the total amount of square footage you can build on the property, setback regulations, everything else. So that once you start talking to a developer in that fashion, they're like, all right, he knows his stuff. And then we get into the quality construction. Perfect example is, I'm not involved in the project, but we have somebody that's building a project, and I'm not going to say where because it's not fully approved yet.
Okay.
But it's a starting price point of $2 million. And they're good friends of mine, and we sat down and I said, you better make sure your insulation factor between the floors is really, it's a frame construction, right? It's not steel, it's not concrete. I said, but you better make sure that insulation factor between the floors is airtight and you cannot hear pitter patters between you. Yeah. And they're like, good point. I go, because you're never going to sell a $2 million product if you can hear somebody stepping above you. And truth be told, you're probably not going to ever do another project after that.
Yeah, that was my biggest
because your
pet peeve.
reputation is getting just destroyed.
When I bought my condo before, that was my main requirement, is it had to be a top floor.
Yep.
Because I couldn't stand the idea of someone walking above me. I was like, I can't do that. I don't want someone walking above me, whether it's in the morning or at night. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. And and I think a lot of people don't think about this, right? They don't think about the noise factor of what. It's interesting because I think that a lot of times when people are looking at homes, they forget what it's like to live there. Like, what is this actually going to look like when the new car smell wears off? And it's not so exciting. And a year later, I have to deal with this, and this is my life. Yeah. Because we'll always find something we don't like about everything.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's huge. I mean, we did Printer Square. I mean, we had somebody drop a bowling ball above it, right? They were sitting in the unit and dropped a bowling ball to see how much they could hear. And then in Sono was this, similar fashion. They had people jump, like literally, they would go upstairs, you'd jump up and down. And you'd want to see what you heard. I mean, you're going to hear something, but you don't want to, like a timber loft, of course, really cool setting. You hear everything.
Yeah, they look amazing.
That's just because of the old historic. But
how do you transition? So say if I was a developer and we were talking, I mean, I love the fact that you've got the product knowledge, right? So you're able to have common ground conversation, which immediately makes that connection. So now they're going to like you. I mean, that's just, that goes without saying, I think, right? Then how do you transition to, all right, I know a lot about this and I can sell? Because I think sometimes when people look at it, it's like, okay, well, that's great if you want to be the developer or the engineer, but what about actually dealing with buyers and sellers and trying to move that product? How do you transition that conversation, or do you? Is it
From a development?
yeah? If you're talking to a developer and you're
Yeah.
going to come on like a listing presentation, if you will, you met them, you're having common ground conversation. I mean, at some aspect that has to change to the sales component, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think just like I said, developers are not all created equal, and I don't think brokers are either.
Right.
So, understanding that knowledge, I think, goes a long way. We've actually worked with, we're doing a car condo project, which is still down the line, still waiting for approval. But these are kind of a cool concept. But what we did is, I engaged a 3D rendering company, right? And then we did some market analysis. Okay. But we really, a big step in all this is designing the digital social media campaigns, website design, et cetera. So we're going all the way to the base of marketing in general, right? And then getting to a level of sales, right? So you need to really know step 1 to step 100 in this process to properly market and sell these units, right?
Okay.
Pricing's always key as well. We've also have several cases where we've walked away from projects because we're like, there's just no way.
No way they're going to get that price.
Yeah,
it's not worth it.
I mean, there's a development in Oak Brook that's been on the books for 6+ years, and it's $1,200 a foot, and it's like, great. I'm not going to sell that because it's not going to sell. So it's just too expensive for that area.
Got it.
And that's probably why he's on 6 or 7 years of the development.
Are they in a position, do you think, where they can just hold on to it and they can wait? They have
it's literally just a piece of land. They haven't done anything.
It's just sitting there.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, and then, we also are looking at a project in Avondale, kind of Avondale, Old Irving area.
Okay.
Potential huge townhome project. We can't get to the right numbers on the land just to get the proper numbers on the sell of the townhomes, right?
Right.
So, developers looked at us and said, oh, we can get 1.5, 1.6 for a single family home. I go, no, you can get 1.2, 1.3. And they're like, what about $1 million townhomes? I go, $800,000 is probably about right. So we have to look at those pricing and make sure we're realistic, right? You also have to make sure that you're cushioning yourself for a down economy. So I always say that, you can't get hurt on the investment personally for like an individual client. Because if you're selling, let's say you're selling those townhomes for $900,000 and the market shifts, and you got to make that adjustment similar to Sono during the mortgage crisis. Right. And you got to drop those prices at $750 just to get out of the loan and sell out the project. You need that gap, right? You need to make sure you have some cushion there too. So
once you get started on this, there's no turning back.
Yeah. So you can't say, hey, these are $900,000 townhomes and you have no cushion. Right. Because you got to make sure you prepare for both sides of this equation, because you don't know if the market will shift.
It's funny with some of the way that this is portrayed in like HGTV and different things, because I would watch it was like Fix or Flip. It's one of these Tariq in his show, and every time we would watch it just for the design ideas, me and my wife would watch this, and it was always the same story. They'd be like, okay, there's this nightmare, we have to deal with it, we fixed it, okay, comps for this home are really selling about $750, but we priced it at $8.25 because we really feel like we've got a good product, better than the rest of the product. And then the end they'll be like, at the end of the day, we took a cash offer for $950. Like, comps for $750, $950. I'm like, where's the smoke and mirrors here? I'm like, this is not real life.
Well, and that's part of the issue too. I mean, we're willing to walk away from properties that are just simply overpriced. I mean, we're not going to spin our wheels marketing and selling the property and putting in the investment if it's just going to sit, right? I mean, listen, 30 days on the market's really not going to kill anybody if you're really trying to like push the price point a little bit. Okay. But there's 2 examples right now. I met with them probably a month ago, and one was like, I said it was probably $700,000. They went on the market for $850. Not going to do it. I got another one for 2.5. They want 2.5. I said it's worth 1.8, 1.9.
Ooh, that's a big gap.
But that's where the market is, because the inventory is so low that people are getting a little greedy. But you also have to explain to them, so that 2.5 that he wants, that 2.5 number, I don't know why it's fixated in his head. I said, listen, you're worth 1.9. If you ever got a 2 in front of it, run, right? Take it and run, because your property used to be worth 1.2, 1.3 prior to COVID. So don't get super greedy here, right? Make sure that you're within range of a proper price point. But you just can't be greedy. It'll just sit and it won't go anywhere. But we'll walk away from stuff like that.
What if you're working with a buyer and for example, you show them the two different properties. You're like, okay, this place is worth it. This place is not worth it. But they really want the other place. And you tell them like, look, this is a bad deal. I highly recommend against this.
Sure. And
they push back. What how do you approach that with someone when they're pushing back against the education and the advice that you're giving them?
Yeah. So I'll always use examples. So right now we're chasing a $3 million+ property in Oak Brook, and they start off at 3.7. And I said it's not worth over 3, and it's still sitting on the market, right?
Okay.
So you love it, you want it, but you're not going to overpay. That's what I always say. There are people and there are situations where, financially they're comfortable probably paying a premium in this market.
Sure.
A direct comment I always make is, hey, listen, I'm going to tell you it's overpriced. You're probably paying, let's say 100, 150, 200 grand, probably more than what I feel like it's worth in the market. But I want to tell you that now, because if you go to sell in 5 years and you lose that equity position of maybe 100 grand, we had this conversation, right? And, listen, motives and people's reasons for buying all vary, right? Family oriented, have to make the move, relocation, whatever else. I just want to make sure that we're on the same page going into this. And if, something should change down the line and they're losing a little bit of money on the deal, then we've had that conversation. I'm never going to oversell a property I don't think is worth it.
Okay.
Right? I want you to make sure you know where your numbers are at coming in, because I want that client back down the line. Right.
Makes sense.
So
I had a client who had reached out. He wanted to refinance. This was last year. A veteran who I'd worked with and had a great rate.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in like the fives, low fives.
Yeah.
Right? He wasn't in a position where he was one of the 2-3%.
Sure.
He was giving it up. And he had approached me to refinance. He said, I want to take cash out. He's like, I'm in the tech industry. I'm really worried that I'm not going to have a job.
Sure.
And I said, okay, well, let's look at this for a moment. Why do you feel this way? And there was no basis backing, nothing for it. Just
Sure.
I'm in the tech industry and I feel like this could be a dangerous place for me. So I want to take cash out, a lot of cash. I want to take 300 grand out of his home.
Yeah.
Right. And I told him, I said, I think this is a really bad idea.
Sure.
That instead, why don't we open up a line of credit for you? You can have that, even if you draw on the line of credit so that you have it for a rainy day, or you want to do whatever you need for it, at least now it's going to financially cost you a lot less money.
Yeah.
And we had the conversation and he was like, I think you're right. Thank you so much. You saved me on this. I'm like, okay. And then a few weeks later, he calls me and says, hey, so could you take a look at this deal that I'm getting from Rocket? Because I don't think it's a good deal. And I'm just wondering if I should be doing this.
Yeah.
And he was going through the cash out refinance.
Yeah.
It was, it didn't matter what I told him in the information I'd given him. So then he sends it over to me. It was not a good deal. And I said, listen, this isn't a good deal. Here's what I can do for you. And then in my mind, I shifted because I realized I was like, okay, this is a good idea for him now because he's losing sleep. Like his quality of life is a problem. Like, so I helped him. I said, okay, I'm going to help you. I still stand by my original decision because he kept asking me, do you think this is a good idea? Do you think this is a good idea? So I reframed it for him and said, listen, I think it's a good idea, but not for the reason you think it is. I said, I think this is a good idea because this is going to help you sleep at night. This is going to help you move past it. I said, I also think this is a good idea because if I don't, you're going to do this anyway, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. Yeah. It saved him like $18,000 on the transaction. Yeah. It was a fairly large VA transaction. Yeah. But it's interesting because sometimes you have the conversation, you try to help. Yeah. And then if you're not going to do it, someone will.
Yeah. And there's a lot of outside opinions that are probably, via social media or news outlets or whatever else, right? Or, parents or whatnot. I mean, somebody probably always has the better idea or more conviction in their comments. I've always just been of the case that the equity in my home is always going to remain in the home, meaning that I bought a townhome in Wicker Park, transitioned all that equity into a single family home in Wicker Park, transitioned all that equity into a rehab project in Elmhurst, transitioned that all into a new construction in Elmhurst. Okay. So at the end of the day, equity just keeps on growing I learned my lesson probably from 2007 and 2010. 2010 was the nightmare of the housing market. And, I had significant equity in my house, in our house. And so, when we transitioned and moved to Elmhurst, we had money there instead of having no equity in your house and not making it a lot of money because the market was so decimated at the time.
It's an interesting market at that time.
Yeah.
A lot of people got out.
Yeah.
That's funny. It's a good segue. You mentioned earlier, not everyone's as good at their job. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Right. And going through and looking at that during the great, recession of housing, created by our industry, there was a lot of people who got out of this industry.
Oh yeah.
And then people get in. I saw an interesting video that was predicting the housing crash coming up, as people do, because that's what sells, right? Sure. Their stats were based off the amount of how many licensed real estate agents there were.
Sure.
And they're saying that historically, every time there's a large number of licensed agents is when we see a huge crash that follows after it.
Yeah.
And and then it reduces, which I feel like it's a reactionary read of the grid.
Sure.
Like, well, it's easy to say that because when there's less agents, it's usually for good reason.
Yeah.
But with that being said, and looking at the amount of agents that are in the industry, not all being created equal.
Sure.
What do you think, like, any stories? Do you think that there's a higher quality of agent out there right now than there has been in the past? Because I guess, let me rephrase that.
No.
Let me change that for you.
Is that a quick response for you?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a percentage of, let's put it that way, that are very high quality. And there's a lot of good young agents. I wouldn't say young, but new agents, I guess is the proper term, that really work hard and learn the business. I mean, we get a lot of business from bad agents.
Right.
So they're out there. They're not all created equal.
No, I work with a lot of agents, and they're really, there's some that are not great.
They don't want to work on weekends. They don't want to be available in the evenings. I mean, it's not a 9-to-5 job.
Right.
So, but just understanding, and like we talked about, construction and the ins and outs of the economy and the market and interest rates and financials is huge, right? You got to be able to talk very specifically on that, right? And find out what their position is.
For sure.
And what's the best result for them in terms of what their purchase is. Right?
I'll find we see this in the lending side too as well. There's in social media, there's people, like, for example, with social media, there are some people who are really good at social media, but they're not really good at the actual job. Right? Yeah. There's some lenders that are on social media. They're phenomenal on social media.
I'm horrible at social media.
Horrible, right? Well, a lot of the best agents and mortgage lenders who are actually good at what they do aren't very good at social media. Yeah. I've often struggled with that, to look at it, because I have a big push for social media and things. So then I'll look in the mirror and be like, does that mean I'm terrible at my job?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with me too, because I have this like funny marketing thing that I was going to do. Because I just don't like it. I think it's a little fake to me, but you have to do it from a marketing standpoint, right? I think the whole social media side of the business is quite fake, because the majority of social media personalities that you see aren't producing a lot of real estate transactions. Right. Kind of fake it till you make it is what I always say with our business. And there's a lot of good ones too. I just never felt comfortable. And personally, I don't never feel comfortable, just because I'd rather be working and talking to my clients versus making, a cheesy social media reel. Yeah. That's why I like LinkedIn better. It's a little bit more professional.
Okay.
And then I pay a social media person to handle Instagram, Facebook, everything else.
Because you have to have it.
Yeah, you have to have it. Yeah, for sure.
I imagine if you're taking a listing on, if you're on a listing presentation, if you're talking to someone about the property, I imagine more often than not, it has to come up. Like, what are you going to do from a social media marketing perspective for this property? Which is interesting. Fake it till you make it. That's
kind of the business.
Tough in this industry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I this is going all the way back to like just training in general, right? They don't train you about zoning. They don't train you about, FAR. They don't train you about quality of construction materials, everything else. They train you on transaction and kind of the Tom Ferry style sale, right? there needs to be more training, right? Kind of my opinion, I love the commercial market in terms of the commercial brokerage, because when you come up in that ranks, you're getting paid a stipend, and you need to sit underneath somebody for 2 years. And if after that you're producing, you can go out on your own. But that 2 years is pretty important to learn the business.
It's a period where you're actually learning what you do.
It's like, okay, if you had $2 million to invest, are you going to give it to the 22-year-old that just got his license in the financial investment field?
Right.
No, you're probably going to give it to the person that has a track record until they learn the business a little bit better.
For sure.
Right. It's as big of an investment as your 401k, as your, IRAs, things of that nature, that you need to make sure you're making the right, purchase decision.
Why do you think there's that gap in the training and with whether it's not just newer agents, right? There's a lot of agents who've been around a long time who are
Correct.
not trained very well.
Sure.
I guess, and I'm not here bagging on agents, but,
No.
But at the same time, what do you think is the reason behind that? Why do you think there's less of a focus, or maybe not enough focus, I guess?
Well, because, media. I mean, the media makes it look easy, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. But I would say the majority of agents that start out, they're in and out in 6 months if they're not producing, right? And I always tell agents in the beginning, I go, it's going to be a year. And if we're in a down market, it's going to be 2 years. Like
before they're actually making some money that they can support
making
themselves
significant
with.
money. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's unfortunate because I don't think a lot of the consumer really respects some of hey, you got the experience, and they'll still go. A great example is I had a client that was $2.2 million, and he had been talking to me for 2 years, and then he calls me. He's like, my brother just got his license, so I'm going with him. And I go, well, A, he doesn't even live in the area.
Right.
And B, like, this is a $2 million place, right? They go to market, and the first 3 or 4 showings, he doesn't even show up. He just asks them to open up the doors. And I'm like, you have no marketing material. You don't even show up. And that's what a lot of people's ideas are, is that you don't, we're present at all of our showings.
Right.
We're making sure that we're selling the property, right? We have spec sheets, we have custom design brochures, we have branded logos. So we actually differentiate ourselves from like the traditional at properties marketing material.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, we want to make sure it's comprehensive, right?
Okay.
Age of mechanicals, age of roof, reserve balance, assessments, parking spaces, all the above. You want to have all that information already put together in a package before you sell it. And unfortunately, the majority of times, and I've been victim to this in terms of like where I'll show up like to a nice condo building in downtown, let's call it the Pinnacle or the Fordham or whatever. And I'm like, hey, what's the assessment? So they're like, oh, I don't know. What's the reserve balance? Oh, I haven't gotten that information yet. What's the rental rate in this building? Oh, I don't know. Is there a cap on the rentals? I don't know. Like, it's poor business.
It is.
It's horrible.
I had a hard time drawing the line on that when I got in the business, because there was this, it's a stigma, and it's been around for a long time. It's like this used car salesman approach. Mm-hmm. And, when someone says that, there's some very good used car salesmen out there, meaning they're probably very good at their job. Yeah. But I think it's just that identity when someone says, I think where it comes into, it's someone who's good at selling just to get the sale. Like they're really good at trying to convince someone they should do something that they want them to do.
Chasing commissions.
Right? Yeah, chasing commissions. Yeah. I'm going to sell you on this because that's what I need to do, rather than trying to take that educational aspect to help someone. Mm-hmm. They're not really trying to help someone, though I knew some people they would do a tremendous amount of business for a short period of time. Yeah. Because they were really good at selling, and then once that reputation builds,
once people see through you, you lose it pretty quick.
Speaking of people, let's have some fun with this.
And it's just, be honest. Like, like I said earlier, it's like you say no, right? Saying no to a client is huge, because I literally had some past client of mine that come out, and actually took him out to play golf, sold a $2.7 million house, and then downsized to a 1.8. But, and he's like, that was the best thing you ever said to me, is no, like, you're not buying this. Right. He's like, I never heard anybody told me that, because you just have a lot of people chasing commissions. Right? You calculate quickly. $2 million is 50 grand, right? I mean, it's,
Yeah.
and once that, I hate to say it, some brokers in this world look at the 50, they don't look at the client, right? And you got to look at the client and the investment.
Right. Focus on the business, do a
Yeah.
good job, and
You'll
the money
always,
will follow.
You'll get, your reputation is everything. You'll get that commission.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be in one or two. The first two you show them, it might be 20, it might be 30, it might be one. Who knows? What if it's the right one? Make sure you're advising them properly, consulting them properly.
Yeah, that way they want to come back and play golf and talk about the next
Yeah,
one.
I mean, most of my clients are friends, and that's how my business works, is 100% referral, really.
Right, they trust you.
So it's, the years of experience and people referring them over and over or using me again. I mean, I've had clients that have done, I think my best client probably done 8 transactions with me in 23 years.
I'm about to approach my 50th transaction with a family.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And they were my first purchase that I ever closed.
Yeah.
And they there's 9 siblings. There's a lot.
That's
there's a lot of
different.
them.
I'm talking about one person.
Yeah, this is one person.
Yeah.
They had but the best, like, something that I try to be, grateful and think of this, because it was last year. I helped the daughter purchase. So her father was my first purchase transaction I had ever closed. And he knows this. I've told him this before, and his brothers I've talked to. And it was just interesting because at first when I talked to her about buying, I was like, I'm not that old. Like, wait a minute, how am I helping someone's daughter? But I mean, the reality is she was a teenager when he bought his house, and now she's, getting married, and her husband, and I'm their family lender. That's it.
Yeah, because they trust you.
My team we have a team call about, we have a transaction with them right now. And they're like, I don't think they read the documents, because every time we get to closing, they have these questions a couple days before closing. And I said, listen, they don't. I said, they don't read anything. They read initially what we tell them that was going to happen. Yeah. I said, and then they read right before closing to make sure we're not changing something. Yeah. I said, because they trust us. They
trust you. You probably already pointed out, what to watch out for in the contracts and what their, the red flags are, of course. I mean, the transaction that we done, 8 transactions, that was a commercial real estate guy I know. He referred me his son for a $250,000, $300,000 one bedroom.
Right.
This is early on. Liked the way I did it. So he referred a client of his that had a huge office space to sell their condo in the city, because they were moving up and they wanted to upgrade they were moving from Peoria up to Chicago. So they had a condo in the city when they did work up here.
Okay.
It's a 2-bedroom condo on Columbus. That was $400,000. And all of a sudden I'm like, well, what's the next steps? Well, it was $4.5 million.
That's a big jump.
And then
10x.
Well, because they just sold their company.
Right.
And so then, but they saw how I worked with his son, probably not his son, but he saw how I worked with his son. So he referred me in this client.
Right.
They saw how I worked with that condo. And then all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, $4.5 million. Well, that $4.5 million was bought and sold. Built a double lot single family home in Lincoln Park, $8.5 million. Bought and sold, built and sold. And then turned around. Now they're over on Lakeshore Drive at $6 million, and we've done transactions ever since.
Based off that $250,000 condo.
Based on a $250,000 condo.
I like that you gave that timeline and just that process, because I know there's a lot of people who will listen to this and they'll say, that's great, 2 million, 3 million. Like, the numbers start to sound unrealistic to some agents, right?
Yeah.
But when you point it out that way, that's exactly it. I didn't even have to ask you how you build to that level. You just laid it out perfectly, focusing on that business, and this is how it continues to grow, and you work yourself into a position where you don't have to continuously push that boulder up the hill.
Correct.
I think about that in the peaks and the valleys in our industry. We're always constantly pushing that boulder up the hill and then letting it fall to the ground and then pushing it back up. It'd be nice to just exist in a nice steady plane.
Well, and you also want to grow your business, right? I think you drive yourself insane if your average price point isn't growing as I'm 48, just turned 48. So like, you should have that clientele, right? I mean, we're not going to turn down the 250, don't get me wrong, but our average deal size is probably 1.3, 1.4 now. So it's
grown.
like,
it's grown with your business,
20
with your
years,
reputation.
20 years ago, it was maybe sub 400. It should grow, and you should anticipate it to grow, and you should expect it, and you should demand it to grow.
Right.
Just like any business, right? You should be, I just think, don't get stuck here, right? And just say, well, that's just who I am. You should be able to understand all aspects of the business to be able to negotiate that $2-3 million deal, as well as the $250,000 condo.
It's interesting, the natural progression. If you talk to someone whose business isn't growing and they say, I'm all referral based, it would be like, well, that doesn't add up because you've been at this for this length of time, and your entrance level and where you're at now is the exact same space, because people in general,
It's the same people.
will move up.
They grow.
So
Yeah.
either you're not working with those people anymore, or you're not all referral based. Something.
Good friend of mine. He
Faking
was,
it till you make it here. You're
good
just
friend of
faking
mine
it.
was a new attorney. $250,000 one bedroom in Old Town turned to a $900,000 four bedroom in Bucktown to a $2.5 million house in Roscoe Village. He did really well, and
I love it.
he just used me all along the way.
Chicago is a big city, but it's a small town because,
Very small.
I mean, there were a lot of people 23 years ago who got into the real estate game. I see them still. We know the names. And Stephanie Lavelle was here sitting in that exact same chair, and we were talking about how she would go to these YPN events then, and see all the names that are all the top leaders in our industry now. These are people that are still here. So when you think about the people who are not doing a good job, just imagine what that looks like for them. Like today, if they're a newer agent and they're building bad habits or not doing things right, it's like 20 years from now, it's like they may not be here because that reputation's gonna
What's that? And
shut them down.
Treat brokers, clients, everybody else, with some respect to it, right? I mean, people get a little frustrated, get a little angry, and we get a lot of brokers that are not the nicest people, and keep your respect in the business too. And like I said, your reputation means a ton, whether you're dealing with other brokers, whether you're dealing with investors, builders, clients, etc. Just keep that reputation solid, right? You don't want to burn a bridge and then all of a sudden have to try to cross that bridge again.
Be a good person.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a bad thing.
Well, you can also cut people off too once in a while because they're not being the best people. I love firing people, so it's very not firing, but like saying, "Listen, I think we've had enough."
Right. I think that's it.
Yeah, and it's fine by me.
So let's see what people are talking about. I haven't done this before. We're gonna have some fun here. I went through and I pulled up a search just to figure out what are people looking at now as people search through AI, right? Because this is the world we live in, right?
Yeah.
ChatGPT is everyone's best assistant. So I'm going to ask you some questions based on. So the basic search parameters around this was, what are the most recently searched questions buyers and sellers have for real estate agents? I just say, I say real estate agents because otherwise I can't say realtors. I can't say it right, and I don't want someone making fun of me. You like broker?
I like the broker,
Like broker.
but I don't. Yeah, I'm not a big.
You don't want to be like, I'm a realtor.
Oh well, I mean commercial broker. I think they don't say commercial realtor.
Fair.
Yeah.
No, they
so
don't.
I think
You're
a
right.
broker is a different terminology.
Yeah. We'll take that. All right. So let's see what people are asking brokers right now. So let's see for buyers. Let's start here. Oh, this is a great one. Is now a good time to buy?
Yes, but tread lightly.
Okay. Can you expand on that?
Inventory's incredibly low.
Okay.
If you're looking in a high demand area, you're going to compete and make sure that the price point is within range of a good price point. Because, I've seen properties that have sold and I literally look at it and I go, there's no way I would ever paid anything close to that.
Right.
And people get caught up in the competition and overpay.
Emotions.
So tread lightly.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're doing your proper analysis to make sure that the pricing is within reason. I use all these examples. Literally yesterday I was with a client and I said, I like this because you can't get hurt. And he's like, what do you mean? I go, well, it's $900,000. You're looking up to $1.3 million. You got about $100,000 to play with here, and you can resell this for 1.1 in probably a pretty down market.
Okay.
Like I go, you can't get hurt. I go, you can go and spend the $1.3 million, but you might get hurt.
Good advice.
So,
all right, let's see what we got here. Some of these questions I often don't know why they were searched, but ChatGPT doesn't lie, right?
yeah.
What should I look for when touring a house?
Going back, just quality of construction, but there's also a lot of. Exterior construction, interior construction, location. There's Chicago. There's not an address or a intersection or a building name I don't know in Chicago, and
Right.
literally I think we talked about this. I like to quantify, or I guess categorize buildings as A, B, and C quality
Oh, that's
buildings.
right, yeah.
So it's kind of like an office type, you have A office, you have B office, you have C office, right? And depending on the client and depending on the situation, then I kind of zero in, are they an A client? Not saying an A client like them, but are they an A buyer, a B
itself.
buyer, a C buyer, or where's their budget at and what's their requirements, right? That might be age, that might be income, that might be, a lot of different factors. But, street by street. I mean, we all know that the odd side of Sheffield's on the L, right?
Right.
The 900 block going east-west up in
Well, we all should know that, but
the 900 block going east-west in Lakeview is pretty close to an L, right?
Right.
I mean, there's things like that. So we get a lot of clients that will say, oh my gosh, I found this property. I'm like, pull it up on a map. And they're like, why? I go, just pull it up on a map. They're like, oh, the train's right there. I go, exactly. Mm-hmm. So we also try to be as efficient as we can with the client to make sure that they're not buying on the wrong block. I mean, because it is literally a block by block.
even on the wrong side of the building.
Even on the wrong side of the street, wrong side of the building, quality of construction. A lot of factors go into this.
This is a good one, actually, when we see this a lot. What kind of incentives or concessions are sellers offering right now?
None.
None. Explain.
Market's just too hot for them. Well, let's put it this way. I would say, and I'm not going to, I can name neighborhoods. I think the core part of Chicago right now is struggling. Gold Coast, River North.
Right.
That's a lot of different reasons. I think a lot of people wanted to move to more of a neighborhood, right? You had that push out for the suburbs in the COVID era. Well, there's also a push into Lincoln Park, right? They were like, I want my own structure. They don't want to be in a condo building. And then I want to be in a neighborhood. Right. And then there's some concern downtown Chicago, of course, as you probably are well aware.
Struggling. Yeah, it's been struggling to come back.
At the end of the day, it's if you're in a high demand market, then you're not going to get a seller concession. I mean, that might flip. If you're in Gold Coast or River North, you might get a concession or two, right? Or if the client, the $3.7 million in Oak Brook, at some point I would expect a seller concession, although Oak Brook's a very hot market. But they
keep that price high.
Yeah.
That's what I tell people too.
Yeah. So, and there's also like new construction, especially single family homes. Like we get clients all the time. They're like, oh my gosh, how much can I get this for? And I'm like, well, really, realistically, this guy's building 5 other houses. He doesn't want to move off his price. Right. But let's look at what we can get put into the price. Right. Pergolas, audio, video, upgrades, floor plan changes, architectural changes, things of that nature.
Expensive.
So if you negotiate it within the deal and they're getting an extra 150 grand, but he sells at that price point because his next project depends on it, that's a win.
I always loved when I was looking at homes and the agents would point out the landscaping and they'd be like, this is $400,000 in landscaping.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're smoking crack. What do you mean $400,000?
Yeah.
I didn't know what actually went into those costs.
Yeah.
I learned.
Oh,
I
yeah.
learned very quickly.
Hardscapes and everything else.
Yeah, hardscaping. You want that outdoor kitchen that's not there. It's not going to be cheap.
Oh, we have this is on the other side. We had a buyer looking and the agent kept on telling me, well, they have $1.5 million in the exterior, which is a pool, pergolas,
oh boy,
hardscape, everything else. I go, there's no way. I go, if they spend $1.5 million, I want to know who that guy is that put this in, because, and long story short, we had this argument with the other agent. I'm like, it's not $1.5 million.
Right.
Like you're trying to make this
possible
price point here because you're claiming it's $1.5 million. So then I call my other client who's getting a pool put in, very nice house, $5 million house. I say, can you send me your quote? He's like, what do you need that for? I go, I just want to have some verification. He sent me like a new pool house, new hardscape, new pool, all the features, 680 grand.
Oh, wow.
And I go, I don't know how in the world you'll ever spend $1.5 million on this exterior claiming is going to be $1.5 million. So long story short, it's kind of
no
funny
due
story.
diligence.
Well, she was trying to upsell it, and
it just wasn't there.
it was just a lie.
Yeah.
It was just a lie.
Well, let's switch gears then, and let's talk about for sellers. So those are some buyers' questions. Let's see what we got here. Oh, this is a good one. How did you arrive at your suggested price?
Oh, for sellers?
Yeah.
So this is interesting right now because the market's so it's listen, over since COVID, I mean, this market has exploded, right?
Oh, yeah.
Pricing wise, right? And that's due to labor rates, like we talked about earlier. That's due to cost of goods, right? Lumber, steel, etc. And so my push with a client trying to sell a property is I give them a range.
Okay.
Right. And I go, listen, here's your range. This is where I'm comfortable at the high end. And if you get that number, that's a huge win, right? Here's where the realistic number should be, right?
Okay.
And then here's the number where let's say the market changes, right? The market can flip in a month, right? And all of a sudden we get into a depressionary environment and this is your bottom, right? So we give them all case scenarios, right? Similar to the guy at 2.5 million, my high end was 2 million, right? So I go, that's just way too much.
It just doesn't fit
and
in that
it doesn't
range.
fit in that range. And I think they appreciate that because they want to know their options, right? Right now, our big push with a lot of clients is I text them all the time. I'm like, the market, I feel like it's shifting a little bit. So the pricing's still good, so take advantage of it now. So I don't give you an exact price, not to mention, it's funny because I get a lot of clients like, what can I sell this for? And like literally the first meeting inside the property. And I go, well, I got to go back and do my homework. And they're like, what price? And I go, I can't do that right now. I go, I have no clue what I'm walking into. Like it could be a disaster zone. Who knows? You could have serious issues in this building. I go, you can't give a price. If you want that, go to Zillow and be 20% above or 20% below and not really have a clue what your price is, right? So then I go home and I really analyze the market. And the couple different things we analyze, of course, are comparable data,
Right.
the current market environment, the current economy, not to mention inventory, right? And then I always tell clients, like, if you're going to market now and you're going at that premium price and the market shifts or this glut of inventory hits the market within your immediate vicinity or within your building, then we have to shift pricing. It's not, this is the price and this is where you should get and this is dollar for dollar. It's never going to be that way.
Yeah, that must be
I'm always trying to maximize value for sure, but I also want to make sure they understand the downside risk.
Yeah, it's like your equivalent of what's your rate, right? That's what we get. What's your rate?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
My rate and your rate are going to be two different things. I have no idea without knowing more about this. Although your side of it's way more in depth, right?
I mean, your side of it's good. I mean, the same thing. I mean, I refer, mortgage brokers out and I usually refer 2 or 3 of them. I mean, and they're like, whoa, you don't have your guy? I go, well, I have 3 guys or 3 girls or, I have good brokers that I trust. And all of a sudden they come back to me and they're like, why are these rates so different? I go, well, who's having you pay points? Who's having put it in a spreadsheet.
Yeah, let's see why.
Let's see why. Talk to them.
It's math.
Yeah.
Why does 2 + 2 = 6?
Yeah. I mean,
because it was 2 + 2 + 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Just take a look.
Yeah, forgot the 2.
So let's see. This is an interesting one. We'll skip that one. What repairs or improvements should I do before listing?
Aged mechanicals, roof, interior updates for sure. Okay. That's always a tough battle too sometimes because, we want clients to do certain things in the property and some aren't willing to and some are. So we try to maximize value. So like sometimes, we'll have a client put a significant investment back in the property if they haven't replaced mechanicals, the roof's 30, 40 years old, water heater's 20 years old. Like I'm going, listen, just replace this now because you're going to get the money back in the sale. You don't want to have to go through the sale and then all of a sudden get hit on inspection items or kill a deal and go through this, 2 or 3 times until you figure out maybe I should have replaced it. As turnkey as the property can be in terms of finish, in terms of finish is the best for the sale. Maximize value, easier transaction, leaves no questions out there, right? I think when you have older mechanicals, some wear and tear on the property, whether it be floors, paint, caulking, etc., it just creates a little bit more hairy deal. And once you have those items, then the buyer's like, well, what else are they hiding, right?
Oh, for sure.
But if you can take a property and it's picture perfect, no issues, literally maybe a loose handle for an inspection item, it's smooth sailing, it's just much easier for a transaction, and it maximizes your value.
Well, there's no question that you know your stuff. And
Yeah.
Jeff, I really appreciate you sharing this with us. I hope that everyone took a ton of value from this. There was a lot of really great stuff in there. And we'll have to have you back. There's so much more we
Sure.
could cover. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Cool.